Hello everyone, today we're going to be doing a series preview for the second round matchup of the Florida Panthers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's just get on into this one. Florida is coming off of a very high emotional roller coaster after they upset the NHL record-holding Boston Bruins in the first round in a 7-game affair after barely squeaking into the playoffs this season. As for Toronto, it was a very, very good year for them, and eventually they ended up going on to defeat the 3-time Stanley Cup finalists, the Tampa Bay Lightning, in 6 games to get the issues and all the drama from the first round exits from years past off their back as they move on to the second round for the first time since 2004. Having said those things though, what are some storylines to watch out for in this series of Florida against Toronto? The first thing is, can Toronto fix some of their defensive issues from the first round? Well, we know that Toronto is capable of putting up goals. Florida, likewise, is also a team that can do the same. In fact, Florida finished with the higher goals for per 60 than Toronto during the regular season. And although Toronto did have more successful power play percentage this year, this is something to watch out for. And it's clear that, of course, the Cats can put up goals on other big-name teams too. Look at what they did with the Bruins. They ended up putting up 4+ goals 4 times in that series. And Toronto kind of looked underwhelming in their matchup against Tampa Bay, especially at 5-on-5. We've all heard about how Justin Holl had a bad series, being outscored 14-2 when he was out there on the ice. And he was part of the issue. As a result, he will probably be a healthy scratch for at least some of these games. I don't know if he'll be all of them. He was a healthy scratch in Game 6 of the matchup against the Lightning. But boy, it would be really nice to have Rasmus Sandin right about now, if I say so myself. But hey, he's in Washington. Anyway, I don't imagine Holl will get a lot of minutes right away, as he's probably going to have to earn back Coach Keefe's trust. And the pairings will probably be tinkered with early on. Pair that with the fact that the Leafs really did struggle to protect the interior slot in this series at 5-on-5, and you could see where things could get a little bit messy. Personally, I'm also looking at Jake McCabe in this series as well. He needs to step up, as the Leafs ended up giving up a pretty decent amount to get him, and in this previous series against the Lightning, the 29-year-old ended up having 1 point while playing over 20 minutes a night consistently, but he did not really play well defensively either, so you could say, well, you know, he might have not been able to be the offensive guy that they needed, but he really did his job out there and did a great job defensively. Not really the case in round 1, and he did eat up a lot of minutes, but if you're not playing well in a lot of minutes, is that really a good thing? Because, again, you really have to figure this thing out now, because you don't want to say, well, I wish we would have figured it out earlier had we had more time. In the playoffs, you really don't have as much time as you'd like. But we'll see. As for the second storyline is, can Bob live up to his deal? This is one topic that could be a little bit boring for some people, but for me, I love talking about goalies on this channel, and for myself too, I can defend this one a little bit more by saying that Bob is the second highest paid goalie going into this season for the 2020-23 season. But yeah, so he's worth a lot of money, or at least the Florida Panthers thought that he was when he signed the deal. And in 4 seasons with Florida, things have been up and down for him. They haven't always been perfect with the Soviet-born player. Yes, he was born in the time that the Soviet Union still existed, but him having a goals above average or against average of 2.97 in 185 games with his current club. Is this all his fault? No, especially that first year. I think that they were really not a great team defensively, but a goalie getting $10 million a year, regardless of how good or bad the team is, doesn't really get an opportunity to make a lot of excuses. So for him, he is going to have to be a factor in this series. The good news is he has been a factor in each of Florida's past 2 playoff series wins, last year against the Capitals, this year against the, I'm blanking here, against the Bruins, excuse me. But yeah, he is a guy that you have to think might not exactly be thrown out there as an all-time great for his position. However, he is being able to make this contract a little bit more palatable than in a few seasons past, because he's able to say, yeah, well, I'm not exactly a Vezina caliber guy right now, but I have been able to get us some success in the playoffs. And for a team like the Panthers that just really struggle to find any success at all, not even postseason success, but any playoff success before him, they did have that really good 2015 season, but we'll, kind of look past that. Outside of that, there hasn't been a whole lot to cheer for until Bob arrived. Not all directly related to him, but 2 first-round wins in 2 years is impressive for a club like Florida, and I think that a conference final run at the very least would make Bobrovsky's contract look a lot better. Again, it's still not going to be worth what you're paying him, but you can say, Well, he wasn't exactly a stud, but when it came crunch time, he ended up coming up clutch a few times. Does he need to slam the door shut in this series? I'm going to say no. I do think Florida's offense is good enough that if they're able to win some of these games, that he could allow 3 goals and probably still keep them in this game. It's just about either A, not having a rough start to the game to where they're automatically down 3-0, 4-0 in the first period, or B, not having a period get away from him. It's okay to allow 1 goal, just try not to make it something that slips away from you pretty quick, with the Leafs being able to build up a pretty nice lead and then trying to, kind of keep it where it's at. So we'll see there for that. And I will say for him, he's done it before where he's had some upsets in the previous runs. You look at the 2019 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then of course this previous win where he came in late in the series and ended up helping the Panthers reverse that 3-1 series deficit. So I am hoping for him he can live up to this deal, but he will be a big factor in if Florida is able to upset the Maple Leafs in this series. Now the third thing here is, will there be a lot of physical play in this matchup? It's a playoff, so yeah, right? Well, if you look at regular season stats as team hits per game, you're probably thinking no. Florida finished 24th in the league in hits per game with about 21.5, and then the Leafs finished 23rd with about 21.7. So you're looking at those two things right there and saying that compared to other teams, they didn't really lay a lot of hits, but according to Corey Z's of all 3 zones, both teams did apply the most pressures off the forecheck this year, or at least 2 of the 3. Carolina, I think, ended up applying the most pressure off forechecks. So you're looking at 2 teams that really have no problem applying a lot of pressure, being aggressive on the forecheck, and the Panthers actually scored the 2nd most goals off of the forecheck this year. So if you're trying to keep your opposition hemmed in, you're probably going to be up in their face, kind of like a older or younger sibling. Maybe you're not touching them, maybe you're just playing the puck, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to get on their nerves. So I do think that we could see a lot of physicality in this one. Both sides actually have a lot of players that are capable of forechecking and forechecking well, but also I do want to say that I think it could get physical because you have some hotheads in this series. Michael Bunting led the league in penalties this year, and then Matthew Tkachuk was also 5th in the same category. And who knows, maybe they could spark a little heat into this rivalry, especially since they are divisional rivals and they get to see each other 4 times a year. The biggest thing is making sure that the physicality doesn't work against you, because these teams are pretty good on the power play, or at least they have the ability to be. And the 4th and final topic is, which team is better suited to win if their stars don't show up? Now this is a tough one because both teams are so good offensively, or at least have that potential. Again, I do think both teams have multiple stars, but in all honesty, I'm going to say that both teams' stars probably won't be shut out completely in this series. Kind of a weird turn here, I know, but Toronto's top 6 is just too good to fade, and then I also think that the Panthers can probably say the same about some of their guys. And you look at the fact too that the Panthers had a tough matchup with the Bruins. Barkov didn't have a ton of goals in that series. I think he just had 1 goal, but you're probably feeling like you just went through the gauntlet there with Boston. If you can get through that, maybe you can go up against a Toronto team that has had some issues with their defensive pairings, and they've also had goaltending that has been good at sometimes, or it's been bad. And I also think for the Panthers, you can kind of look at that and say they've had some issues as well, where they've had to wonder what's going to be the situation in net. What is our pairings going to be like too? So I do think that the Stars should be able to make an impact at least in some games for this series. Maybe they won't have an impact in every game, but they will have an impact for their teams. That being said, I do think Florida might be a little bit better suited if their Stars are not able to show up to the level that they're expected to. But I do have to make a pick for this series. So having said all this, who will I be picking in this series to win this one in the 2nd round to advance to the Eastern Conference Final? I will be picking the Toronto Maple Leafs in 7 games. I do think that Toronto could win the series a little bit earlier than this, but at the same time, I do want to give Florida a little bit more recognition and also be a little bit more cautious against picking against them. I said Boston should beat them in 5, and they were up 3-1 in this series, but they never got to where they could feel or close it out. You look at Game 6 specifically. In Game 7, they had the lead late in both of those games. They weren't able to hold it, and then of course Florida went on to win that series and be part of a huge upset. Now Toronto is still a very good team, and it wouldn't be as big of an upset, but it would still be a big one here. And I think at the end of the day, I'm looking at this expecting Toronto's guys to step up. I do think that they'll be able to fix some of the issues that they've had up to this point, but also around this, I do think with the Maple Leafs getting the monkey off their back, they will be able to go to the Eastern Conference Final for the first time in a very long time. In fact, I think it was just different divisions the last time that they were there. But yeah, so here we are looking at this where I picked the Panthers, or excuse me, the Maple Leafs to win this one. But I want to know, who are you picking in this series and in how many games? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go off hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.